You're on, Dr. Walden.
Am I on? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 8th graduation ceremony of the Justice Involved Life Coach program. We are so pleased to join all of our graduates this evening to commend them on the hard work that they have done to achieve their certificate in this life coach program. We have 8 students who will receive their certificates this evening, and they have taken many, many courses over the last 4 months to be able to show that they have acquired the skills necessary to support previously incarcerated individuals who will be returning to their communities. They have taken courses such as Introduction to Correctional Care, courses around social determinants of health and racial disparities, and courses relative to reentry to the community. We are so very proud of all of these individuals who will now take the opportunity to go into their communities and to support those individuals who are coming back to their families and their communities in making sure that they attain the best possible life that they can following their incarceration. So we again welcome everyone to this graduation ceremony. I want to especially thank Ms. Latanya Hill, who directs and administers this Justice Involved Life Coach program, for all of her hard work in working with our graduates this evening, as well as Dr. Harry Drayton, who is the program director for our MAGIC programs. So again, sit back, enjoy the presentations, enjoy this graduation ceremony, and again, congratulations to all of our graduates. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and congratulations to all the graduates for putting. I pray that you continue to grace them and be with them, that they may have positive influence in the lives of others. Help them to put the knowledge, skills, and challenges and difficulties. Let them always remember why they embarked upon this path. I pray for great success for.
Pastor Brian for that prayer. Next, we'll have our encouraging words up by Pastor Clarence Hampton. You're muted.
I'm back. Good evening.
You're muted again, sir. I'm sorry.
Is it on now?
Yes.
Okay. Again, good evening, Ms. Hill, and to all of the families of the graduates and the graduates of this program that we're celebrating tonight. I want to say to you, to the graduating class of Justice Involved coaches, tonight you have shown us that you've accepted this challenge. You completed this course. This course of men and women are not just an opportunity for you to strut across the stage or to give us a virtual presentation of your victory because you have now gained another certificate. This is a completion of a process that calls you to a level of commitment that is uncomfortable for many, and for some, it is absolutely unconscionable. The idea is, how could you consider even helping someone? How could you fathom the idea of supporting someone who's been in the penal system? This idea that someone has been processed through the halls of justice and found guilty deserves an opportunity to live amongst we law-abiding citizens? What could you possibly be thinking? You would take your time, your hard-earned money, your resources to assist a man or woman who has completed the process in the penal system and now re-enters a just society viewed as an unjust individual. What could you possibly be thinking? Whatever happened to forgiveness? Whatever happened to compassion? Whatever happened to restoration? And how do we hope to have a process of reduction and recidivism if we don't have a reliable response? Graduates, tonight, what you receive is more than just a paper. What you receive today is a presentation of your promise. It means that you understand that every man and every woman is not perfect. It means that you know that the truth is someone that witnessed your moments of questionable decisions and someone who would testify against your brokenness in behavior patterns would say like Big Mama, but for the grace of God, there go I. You could have been that case of mistaken identity. You could have been that stereotyped citizen who fell in the hands of an unjust law enforcement officer or disciplined by a determined authority who sits on a high seat, who wants to eliminate from the community all that do not conform to this perfect system or rule of law. Perfect system or rule of law. We're not going to talk about that. Tonight, you declare an answer to the question that all of you may be having in your minds. Can I really do this? And the answer is yes, you can do this. And I want you to say to yourselves tonight, yes, I can do this. The Apostle Paul declares in Galatians 6, brethren, if a man is overtaken in a fault, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of meekness, considering yourself, lest you be tempted, and bear one another's burdens, so to fulfill the law of Christ. Paul was not speaking arbitrarily to anybody. Tonight, he was speaking to you. He was talking to men and women who have been behind bars. You know that they have someone that they can count on. They need to believe that they are not the sum of their decisions. They need to believe that they have not been confined just by a system, but they have people outside of the system who will take the restraints off of them. Government and general society wants to hold them, but you tonight take the mindset that you won't do it. They need to know that there is forgiveness. They need to know that there is compassion. They need to know that there is love. They need to know that you can make them believe what I'm saying to you tonight. Yes, you can do this. You can get a good job. You can provide for your family. You can get a good education. You can have a successful business. You can do this. There is a great man by the name of Dr. Martin Luther King who tells a story while he was talking at a conference about how he flew on a plane and came to Atlanta. And when he got to Atlanta, it was there that they wanted to move him from the general dining area to an area of people that looked like him. They told him it would be okay. They told him that the room was okay. They told him that the food was the same. And yet somehow in his spirit, he knew that it wasn't okay for them and it wasn't okay for him. He told them that he would be unhappy, that he really would be indignant if he was to be satisfied with this, because the aesthetics was that he had paid for his ticket. The aesthetic was that he had paid for his meal and he deserved to be treated like everybody else. Tonight, men and women, brothers and sisters, I want you to join with the leaders of this program and Dr. King. You will not hold people to the wrong aesthetic because they have been confined and now they've been released. They have paid their price and now they deserve the rights of everybody else. You need to let them know that you know and understand that ex-offenders pay bills. Ex-offenders, they have taxes. Ex-offenders have families. And ex-offenders will have a good job if people like you help them to get to that place. You are helping to provide an opportunity, and your commitment says that you will make a difference. Your commitment says that you will make a change. And I want to leave you with this one thing. Don't think that because you're one person, you can't make a difference, because you, brothers and sisters, can do this. You have been called to this. You have gone through this. Now stand on the platform of your promise and show that you will do this.
Wow, what a wonderful, wonderful words of encouragement from Pastor Hampton. We thank you so much for that. Pastor Hampton. Powerful words. Again, you can do this. You have embarked on the journey to where you will do this. You will make a difference in those individual lives who have been impacted by the justice system. Now, as we move forward in the program, I would like to take a moment to just give you a brief explanation of one of the primary projects that the students accomplished throughout this program. It is the Culminating Project. This is a comprehensive project assigned to the students that they complete throughout the end of this program. It serves as a capstone project for them. This project allows the students to have face-to-face interactions with justice involved individuals who are preparing to return back into our communities, as well as with individuals who have worked in the justice system and those individuals who provide services in our communities to those individuals who are justice impacted. This project allows our students the hands-on opportunity to really impart those skills and knowledge that they have learned throughout the program, as well as an opportunity to showcase all of what they have learned as they aggregate this data into a presentation. We will now begin our presentation by our students. This is our culminating presentation, and each student will have an opportunity to come up and share with everyone who's watching, family and friends. They will be able to share with you what they put together from their culminating project. We will begin our presentation. First up is Dr. Brian Kelly. Dr. Kelly.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is my culminating project, A Path Forward in Justice, Involved Care, Life Coach, and moving forward. So can I get the next slide, please? Okay, the professional that I interviewed was a deputy warden at Phillips State Prison, located in Beaufort, Georgia. It was mainly an all-male prison. We had approximately 779 inmates in the institution in ages ranging from 18 to 72 years of age. Our recidivism rate was 43%. You can look at the GDC website if you need any additional information on that. Can we please go to the next slide? Okay, deputy warden of the treatment facility, skills and responsibilities. As I went down my question and answer list, her degree was in arts, bachelor's of arts in psychology. She had previously held positions as a corrections officer for several years and also as a behavioral counselor. She had been a deputy warden for approximately 4 years. Her skill sets that I asked her about was management, motivational interviews, mental health counseling, interprofessional collaborations, on-site medical team, and also the medical director and mental health professionals and psychiatrists. I worked at this facility for approximately 8 months, and then I moved on. Daily responsibilities that were important to her were things such as making sure that the inmates had what they needed, making sure they were getting the medical care. We had a lot of emergencies, a lot of drug overdoses, a lot of illicit drug abuse, stabbings, and we are a level 3-4 facility when it comes to mental health. So we had a lot of forensic patients at that site also. As a group, she thought what would help facilitate it was programming and motivation and change in the moral and reconciliation of therapy, because that wasn't always being done there. Next slide, please. Deputy Warden also talked with me about how we can make things better, support the justice, and keys to success. I said, what are the keys to success? And that's having an informative staff to be knowledgeable of all roles of care and treatment, not only for one specific department, but for all departments so we can flow smoothly. Additional resources that would be helpful are large teams, because we had a staffing issue where we were down about 30% of the correction officers that we needed, more efficiency and more real-time information. A lot of times we didn't find out if a person needed something until days after, sometimes weeks. And I said, what advice do you have for me? And I can pass on to my classmates and other members people involved in getting citizens returning back into the community. She said, be vigilant, try to understand the population better, post-release housing and jobs, 180-day release program, and reentry programs. Next slide, please. These are jobs and companies because jobs are very important. So I found a list that went on the website, and I have the reference down here. These are major corporations that will hire people when we talk about checking the box. I recently did an application. I said, have you ever been charged with a felony? I said, no. The next question, have you ever been convicted of a felony? I'd never seen that on any of my applications until this year. And I've been doing this quite a long time. So if you can see from Amigo to Walmart to Walgreens to Waffle House, Tires Plus, there's a lot of companies, Dairy Queen, Chipotle, Chick-fil-A, that will hire our people coming out of institutions going back into the community. Please. The importance of social justice involved care, health care. One thing we want to do, how prisons can improve. Reducing solitary confinement. That's 23 and 1. In prisons, you're in solitary confinement for 23 hours. And then they say, oh, you have 1 hour now to go do something. They haven't been taught to think. They haven't been doing anything. But this goes to the Puritans when this whole system was set up, where they said, just have solace and think about what you did and you'll be all right. It has nothing to do with vocational training, which is my next thing. Modern vocational training. Pressing license plates, cleaning people's cars, woodworking. Those are skills that's pretty much lost. We have computer CAD systems, computer animated stuff. We have 3D printing. So give them skills that they can really use and transfers into a meaningful working wage that they can support their family. Advocating the legislature to change the laws of incarcerated individuals. Here in America, we have more individuals incarcerated than any what you call not third world, but progressive country. We are the largest. We are considered to be the best in the world, but we have more people incarcerated, especially people of color and people of socioeconomic status. Eliminate the bias in status in sentencing. As we know, an ounce of cocaine, caught with one, that's a problem. You get life sentences for that, but we won't go into that right now. Next slide, please. Okay, what are the barriers? Employment, we talked about that. Support systems, do they have what they need when they get out? Housing is very important. Transportation, if you can't get to your health to get your medication for blood pressure. If you're a felon, did you have to check the box? I did. Do you have a government issued ID? Do you have a social security card? Do you have a birth certificate in some instances? And benefits. Do you have any benefits that are due you? Do you have to pay restitutions to families or things of that nature? Is there a healthcare center? Georgia is a big state, but there are some counties that doesn't even have a health center in it. So if they need psychiatric help, we have what we call CSBs. And CSBs are where you can go get rapid treatment for mental health, addiction, and things of that nature. But like here, we have a full one in Fulton County. We have a full one in DeKalb County, but Cobb County is Cobb, Paulding, and Douglas counties because those other two counties are too small. But we have a long waiting list to get people in. What about probation? If they have no transportation, how will they get to their probation officer? Sobriety, if they were in a treatment program, medically assisted treatment to get off of cocaine, fentanyl, heroin, whatever it may be the drug, how can we get them to stay in a sober state? Children, child support, do they have issues with child support while they were incarcerated? Help them with that. So when they get out, they won't violate parole or child support and be re-incarcerated to decrease the recidivism rate. Digital inequities. I've met people who've never seen a cell phone. I walked in with a cell phone and they never seen a cell phone and things of that nature. The latest thing they may have seen was a word processor many years ago, which is way, way behind. Policies. We need to increase the policies and the way that we look at incarcerated individuals and returning citizens in the United States. Next slide.
All right, we thank you for your presentation, Dr. Kelly.
Yep.
We are running out of time and we have to move on. So that was a great presentation. We thank you for all of that knowledge that you gave as we share with our family and friends the importance of really identifying barriers and being able to assist those individuals or breaking those barriers. Next up, we will have Miss Candace Kennedy. She will come forward with her presentation. We cannot hear you, Miss Candace. Please make sure y'all are unmuted when you enter to do your presentation.
Thank you so much. So as we dive into my presentation, I want to thank everyone for your time, and I want to thank Morehouse School of Medicine for even having this program, because the need is there, and there are so many that are looking to make a substantial difference and not go back and forth within that loop of our justice system. So next slide, the first highlight that I want to give, if you could, next slide, put the next slide. Thank you. Officer Respect. So he's aptly named as Officer Respect, not just for security reasons for this presentation, but also it goes to how within his work at the Florida Department of Corrections, they use the title and the last name for not just the staff and officers, but also the inmates as well. And so for Officer Respect, respect is aptly given to him as his last name, because it's one of the beliefs that he holds dear and he was very passionate about within his role as a correction officer. He summarized his role as safety, care, custody, and control. He repeated that: safety, care, custody, and control. One with safety and care to make sure that as an officer, you do show care to the persons that are within your custody. They know that the inmates are in their custody, and whatever time that they have to do that time. But also as an officer, he sees his role is to control the environment, from their church services to the meetings to the library, whatever environment those persons who are involved within the facility that he's working, he wants to show them and treat them fairly, not mistreat them, make sure that they know that he's going to treat them with respect, and that he demands that they give him the respect as well, and that he's going to make sure that they're safe and by controlling the environment. And also with certain privileges that they have, he mentioned that, like visiting families, that's also one of the control factors that they use, because if they are not in compliance, they will take those privileges away. So as an officer, providing that safety care, control, and custody for not just the inmates, but the staff and the general public is his mission and goal. And it aligns itself with what the Florida Department of Corrections sees as their mission as well. So next slide. Officer Respect, in the facility that he works, they have about 1,000 inmates with one officer to 30 inmates. He sees this as an issue. He sees that it should be a closer number, and we'll get to that in a moment. But within the population that he currently serves is about 40% white, about 30% Black, 20% Hispanic, and 10% other. And the current recidivism rate is not where their goal is, but it is currently about 80%, where mostly the repeat offenders are primarily between 20 and 40 years of age, but they're looking to have their goal about where 60% in the short term, so that they can get it all the way down to about 25%, where up to 75% of persons who go through their facility for whatever reason do not come back. So next slide. In officer respect, he's definitely one where he has some college at a 4-year institution from Georgia, but he needed to go ahead and start working as a college student. So he unfortunately did not complete his college in his earlier years. He hopes to go back for that later in life if the opportunity presents itself. But he's been an officer for over 20 years. And so before he was an officer, he, within his current role at the Florida Department of Corrections, but leading up to that, before, he previously worked as a monitor on a psych ward at a drugs treatment center. But he needed something more stable. So that's why he became a corrections officer, for the stability in the career advancement and to meet his overall goal of just helping people, especially those who are in need. And so right now, currently, he attends the annual trainings that the facility offers. But this is actually a new thing, as he puts it. It's getting better at the facility with the training that they provide. Right now, they're having a lot of burnout programs and annual classes, more annual classes than just the norm, to kind of get the staff up to par. Trainings had stopped for a while, but now they're, as of this year, they're coming back online. And he's one that encourages his coworkers to seek help. If you need additional training, be willing to get that training. And he tries to be, with the number of years that he has within his job, he tries to be one to encourage the younger coworkers who, as he says, sometimes are not willing to listen and learn, but he tries to motivate them to learn what they need to do the job, because a lot of the older officers are phasing out, and there is a need for persons to take their place who are willing and able to listen and learn and do the job. So next slide. Next slide, please. Yes. So here, within this slide, we see some of the things I've already mentioned, but to the point, how he addresses the inmates and uses the good communication and interpersonal skills. Again, respect and consistency at all times is definitely something that he emphasized passionately, that safety, care, custody, and control for the inmates, staff, and public ran throughout our entire our interview process, and in everything that he had to say, including how they collected data for from the inmates within his role, how data was collected. And so some of what he uses to perform his daily tasks and things that are needed is more pay. He feels as if regular raises for time served and performance. A lot of younger officers are coming in and getting paid at a higher rate than the officers that have been there before. And so there needs to be some sort of adjustment there. Again, more staff. Bonuses, they don't really get those right now, but definitely it would be nice to have, as well as that work-life support, and balance. There's a lot of forced overtime, again, burnout. Morale is at a low. It's not at an optimal level. And there are some safety issues because of how the ratio from officer to inmate is right now. That does pose a safety issue. And for him, he just goes to do his job as best as possible. And then when we look at, next slide, please. Again, him motivating others, how he approaches his job, and advice for anyone that wants to work with justice-involved persons. He says to pray every day, pray all through the day. Keep God first. Just do the job and don't take anything personal. And these are some of the things that he not only uses to motivate himself, but to motivate others. Because ultimately, in his opinion, with things that are from what he sees that are changing now, that there are several programs that the inmates are being exposed to. They definitely need more programs, but they're getting what they need in order to not return. But it's all about the mindset. And so to change that mindset, if they're not ready to change, they're just not going to change. And with his level of experience, he was pretty confident in that. So officer respect. And so next slide. So we have, next slide, please. And we next we have the returning citizen, Champ Napier, who's now also working as a client advocate. And so this one is twofold. And so he's in addition to his role as a client advocate, you can see he's an author and he's a community health worker. For him, if you go to the next slide, he was, next slide. Yes. Returning home after 14 years incarcerated for murder. He was one of the first, or the first, murder conviction to be allowed to have parole in the state of Alabama, but that has not defined him. He has continued to work for that self-discovery that he realized through his incarceration, and has continued to educate and advocate for those impacted by the prison system as an author and community health worker, and as a client advocate with the Mobile County Public Defender's Office in Mobile, Alabama, for the past 4.5 years. His change was sparked not just by his faith in the people he met within the prison system, and those who helped him throughout, practitioners and the like, but it was also contributed by him reading books. Some of the ones that inspired him were the ones about George Washington Carver, Malcolm X, and George Jackson, the Black Panther. These allowed him to expand his horizon and change his mindset from the negative behavior patterns that he grew up within, that impoverished environment and was exposed to. Now he was exposed to everything else. And so every day he walks, whether he's walking into the office, jail, courthouse, or any place, he prays for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to be effective with what he has to do. And today he's a liaison between the client base of the Public Defender's Office, their family, and the greater Mobile County community. He treats them as a human and assures them of legal representation. For him, why would anybody want to put chains on anyone after they have paid their dues and are striving to make it? Next slide, and we're concluding. He's striving.
Thank you, Ms. Candace.
So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We thank you for that wealth of knowledge and just being able to give us some insight onto how it is important for the care and the safety both inside and in the communities. Next up, we will have Dr. Scott Holmes. Please unmute yourself, Dr. Holmes.
All right. Can you hear me? Great. All right. I'm Dr. Scott Holmes, and of course, what I will be doing today, first of all, thank you to the Morehouse School of Medicine staff and faculty for accepting me into this program. I'm really excited about my future after this, and I'm excited about presenting today. I did my presentation on gender responsive approaches for justice involved women. And the reason why I did this particular I decided to take this particular project on because it was very close to my heart, because I served for 10 years as the senior psychologist and director of treatment for the Tutwiler Prison for Women here in Wetumpka, Alabama, which is a part of the Alabama Department of Corrections. Next slide, please. And the reason why this is dear to my heart is because if you can Google Tutwiler Prison for Women, the Department of Justice had to come in and just actually revamp the programming for Tutwiler Prison for Women. There were a lot of things that had happened, and we totally did a complete overhaul on this in order to make sure that justice-involved women had an opportunity to be able to move forward in life. So the approach that we took in order to assist these justice-involved women was a pathway approach. And we understood the pathways that women come into prison. Study findings indicate that paying attention to the differences in male and female pathways into criminality and their differential responses to custody and supervision can lead to better outcomes for both men and women offenders in institutional and community settings. Next slide, please. So again, why do we have to have a different approach for justice-involved women? Well, women by nature are relational, not needy. Many people say women are needy, but women are relational. And a lot of times the reason their pathway into the criminal justice system was based upon something that they were related to. So if they were traumatized by something, a lot of times that's what happened. They committed that crime because of something they were connected to. And this is just a profile of the justice-involved women that we dealt with. Many of them were in their early 30s. A lot of them had drug-related crimes because many of them had some mental health issues, and therefore what they were doing was they were self-medicating, or they were holding the drugs for their significant other. Many of them were very undereducated and unskilled. They came from very impoverished situations where they did what they had to do in order to provide for their children, because they were unemployed. And so many of them had minor children. And so, as a parent, the maternal instinct kicks in. And so therefore I have to do what I have to do in order to make ends meet for my children and for my family. Many of them were disproportionately women of color. Some had, of course, I mentioned substance abuse issues, and several of them were incarcerated due to domestic violence and relationship issues. And many of that stemmed back to the traumatized life that they lived. And as a result, they just developed this fight or flight syndrome. And so as a result, they ended up incarcerated. Next slide, please. Next, okay. So this is just an example, or just kind of like a flow chart of what happens with many women. And as I often state, that if you can process the why, you can understand the what. If you can process why they did what they did, then you can understand the what. And then from there, you can coach them into where and mentor them into where they need to be. And you can do that without being judgmental. So many of them come in with a lot of child and adult abuse. And as a result of it, of course, it's going to cause some form of depression, or oppression, and they develop a mental illness, or there have been undiagnosed mental illnesses. And of course, what would happen is that when it's undiagnosed, and I often tell a lot of people now, as a psychologist, a lot of people like to Google their symptoms and see exactly where they can treat it. But in this particular situation, many of them were just medicating with substance abuse. And so as a result of it, what happened? They ended up in the criminal justice system. Next slide, please. And this is another example of what happens to a lot of justice-involved women. Child abuse. Many of them were in foster homes, and they could have been with DFACS, or as we in Alabama, we have what we call the Department of Human Resources, and they could be a human resources child and have gone through that type of abuse. And so what did they do? They ran away. And as they run away, and of course, I don't know, many of you have probably heard a lot. In Alabama, we've had a very, very bad sex trafficking problem. And we've had several incarcerations because of that. And so that's what they end up being, is on the streets, prostituting themselves, being introduced to sex the wrong way, using sex as love. As a result of it, what has happened? Then they develop unhealthy relationships, and they're thinking they're in love with someone, then they connect with someone else, and pretty much they're not in love, they're just trauma bonding. And so as a result of the bond, what do? They need to find some type of relief. So what do? They go for substance abuse again. And then after that, they end up in the criminal justice system. Next slide, please. So with all of that in mind, what can we do in order to assist these young women, or even senior women, believe it or not, in progressing through life and doing better? Again, I say, if you can process the why, you can understand the what. One of the things that we implemented was the WARNR, and that's the Women's Risk and Needs Assessment. And so it is specifically tailored to women that are justice involved. And so it helps us develop programming for these women in order to assist them again with their lives. So it helped us, and these are just some topics that if you're going to go into gender responsive approaches to for justice involved women, these are some of the topics that one should look at. Of course, self-esteem is one, because many of them come with their head hung low, and because of the fact that their children have been taken away from them. You have to establish trust and growth fostering relationship classes, because many of them have been in toxic relationships, and as a result of it, they've ended up in the criminal justice system. Talking to them about sobriety and sexuality, and not only sexuality, but sexual health. Many of them have been on the streets. They've never had a pap smear. They didn't even know what a gynecologist is. And so as a result, they develop mental health problems. Pregnancy and parenting skills, that's something that is very important that they would need. Decision making, and of course, trauma, cultural awareness and sensitivity, and by all means, spirituality. Next slide, please. My interviews. I interviewed a returning citizen that is now out of Tutwiler Prison, and she is a Black female, non-veteran, single mom. She was there for several domestic violence charges as a result of some toxic relationships. But while she was there, this is what we decided to do. She's earned her AA in cosmetology from J.F. Ingram Technical College while she was there. And she obtained many of her documents and licenses while she was there through our reentry program. And now she is doing hair and makeup. Our service provider actually was a senior licensed social worker that I interviewed that specialized in dealing with justice-involved women. She created all types of programming for these women, and also provided resources for them in order to be able to get all their documents done, including the driver's license, as well as foster care for the children. Next slide, please. I interviewed also a justice involved service provider, which was Reverend Angie Spackman of AIM. This particular organization is the Adullam House here in Alabama, and this house houses the babies for our young our justice involved women until they get out of prison. And so
Dr.
they nurture
Scott,
them.
we thank you for your presentation, and that was some great informative information, you know, really being able to understand the why to really process, you know, what is going on with our individuals, both males and females and our juveniles. What a wealth of knowledge that you presented in that presentation, full of resources and just really inspiring to see that individuals that may have, you know, had an encounter with the system can turn their lives around and really return back into the community better than which they went in. Next up, we will have Miss Isley Anderson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Isley Anderson, and this is my presentation, Next Chapter. Next slide, please. I had the privilege of interviewing a justice-involved care service provider from Viewpoint Health. Next slide, please. Here, before reading or going over the presentation, you guys wanted to get more information, you can definitely go on this website to know more about the organization and also programs and assistance of helping the justice-involved population. Next slide. While interviewing the justice-involved care service provider, she is a hospital liaison community care coordinator. The mission and vision of the organization is to improve health and quality of life through effective care, focusing on mental, emotional, physical, and financial well-being while reducing recidivism and breaking the cycle of incarceration. Here I have some statistics on the slide. You guys can take a look. Next slide, please. While interviewing the justice-involved care provider, she stated she's dedicated to supporting vulnerable populations, particularly those affected by mental health challenges, stigma, and incarceration. She has an associate degree in child care counseling and experience as a counselor working with adults and children as well. She offers programs such as anger management, coping skills, and substance abuse recovery as well. Next slide, please. Here we have some resources. We have our additional support and our barriers. The provider collaborates with peers, supervisor, and community organization using tools like passion, empathy, and understanding while maintaining healthy boundaries. Some of the barriers may consist of limited resources for clients and the challenges of advocating for certain populations, which can hinder progress through solutions like increased mental health resources. Next slide, please. Also, this is more information regards of me interviewing the justice-involved care provider. The provider role does not involve collecting or analyzing data, but she focused on building strong rapport and trust with individuals, setting clear boundaries, and fostering a supportive environment. She works to reduce stigma by educating the community on mental health challenges and emphasis compassion for individuals' past trauma. Next slide, please. I had the pleasure of interviewing a returning citizen. Next slide. Returning citizen background. He was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, moved to Atlanta, Georgia during his teenage years, and was first charged as a juvenile at the age of 17. He was sentenced to 20 years and 2 weeks in prison after being charged with 10 counts in 2004. And successfully completed a 7-month program at the Metro facility in 2023. Growing up, he struggled with the lack of parental connection and sought support from the streets. Next slide, please. Also, this is some statistics regarding me interviewing the returning citizens. He's a 30-year-old African-American male. In his incarceration years, he did 20 years and 2 weeks. His charges will consist of 10 different counts, such as felony murder, murder, and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Next slide, please. Okay. Right here, I have a reentry plan and support. Basically, this reentry plan and support includes life coaching for personal growth, anger management, healthcare, enrollment, and mental health counseling. Additionally, support will be provided for obtaining identification, securing housing and transportation, finding employment, participating in community service, and receiving ongoing check-ins. Next slide, please. Here on this slide, we have improvements in the systems. So my two examples I provided was one of them is policy improvement should include increased mental health support, stable housing programs, job readiness initiatives, and life coaching to aid reentry. Next slide, please. Next one, barriers to reuniting with families such as past trauma, health issues, and financial struggles can rebuilding relationships. So these are some of the opinions and also my two examples when it comes to the improvement in the system that needs to be happened. Next slide, please. Had the pleasure of creating a program which is called New Chapter. Next slide. And the New Chapter program offers individuals a chance to rewrite their stories with support and guidance, focusing on building positive futures and avoiding return to prison. It provides vocational training, life coaching, mental health support, and anger management to address emotional challenges and build essential skills. Post-release assistance includes securing housing, healthcare access, job placement, financial literacy, and mentorship. Help individuals reintegrate into their communities successfully. Next slide. And this is just basically describing more of the program that I created or eventually would like to create. Next chapter, next slide. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Isley. What a wonderful, wonderful treatment plan, as well as a program to provide to those individuals to help navigate those barriers. I really like that program and look forward to seeing you implementing that program in the future. Next up, we will have Ms. Jessica O'Brien. Please unmute yourself, Ms. O'Brien.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica O'Brien, and I am honored to present this project. As someone who is justice involved, I have experienced firsthand the systemic barriers that make reclaiming life after incarceration so challenging. This personal connection underscores the immense value of life coaching in helping returning citizens overcome these obstacles and rebuild their lives, including recapturing the American dream. Next slide, please. This presentation is grounded on insights from 7 interviews I conducted with returning citizens and dedicated professionals. Their stories highlight both the challenges and opportunities faced by the justice-involved community. Due to time constraints, I will focus on a few key points that capture the essence of their experiences. Next slide, please. Let's start with the unique lives, shared hopes of 3 justice-involved individuals. One is still incarcerated in Atlanta. Returning citizen S has kept his plan to a minimum, knowing the systemic barriers awaiting when he returns to his community, which is disheartening. The other 2, despite their extensive education and work experiences as founder and executive director and former attorney, for years they have endured rejection after rejection. Mrs. Citizen M finally secured a job as a waitress. Through perseverance, Mr. Citizen M, after losing his family, home, and career, is now an executive director. I interviewed him as both a returning citizen and professional provider. Next slide, please. Mr. Citizen M turned executive director shared this: no one should be judged for their worst moment. To be a successful life coach, you must let go of preconceived notions and simply absorb the experiences of others. In so doing, you'll not only help them grow, but also learn about yourself. Chaplain H, a correctional chaplain, advised, follow your calling with compassion, serve people of all backgrounds with love and respect, regardless of their past. Former prison guard turned counselor J, a behavioral health counselor at Metro Reentry, emphasized, develop strong listening skills and check your biases. Listening allows us to understand the unique needs of those we serve. Next slide, please. Last but not the least, a graduate of this program is Dr. S, a senior counselor at Metro Reentry, reminds us, Encourage resilience. People can and do change. Believe in them and help them believe in themselves. Next slide, please. As I reflected in these stories, I saw parallels with my own journey. Before becoming justice involved, I worked my way up in management in the hotel and restaurant industry, then earned my law degree and 2 masters of law in taxation and employee benefits, and served in various leadership roles, including as the first Asian American president of Illinois' largest and oldest women's bar association. My last job, I served as the first Filipino American judge elected in the state of Illinois. Despite these accomplishments, since my release in 2020, I've struggled to find employment. My story is not unique. It highlights the systemic challenges that justice-involved individuals face daily, regardless of their skills, education, or determination. This needs to change, and together with all of you, we can transform this challenge into a vision for change rooted in the principles of freedom, resilience, and the American dream. These barriers are clear, and life coaching is essential to unlocking this potential by focusing on resilience, growth, and opportunity. Next slide, please. These are just some of the advice. Counselor Jay, I'll highlight this again. Most of the time we think we have all the answers, but we don't. Listening allows us to truly understand the unique needs of those we serve. Next slide, please. Dr. S basically says that God is everywhere, even in prison. Life coaching, as she sees it, also needs to be approached without fear. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. In closing, returning citizens embody resilience and determination, the very essence of the American dream. As future life coaches, policymakers, and leaders, I believe that the time for action is now. Let's commit to breaking the stigma and ensuring everyone has a chance to reclaim their lives and contribute meaningfully to society. As quoted in the Bible, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters. Together, we can build a society that embraces second chances and celebrates the resilience of the human spirit. Next slide, please. This is a slide that I had suggested. It's basically an app that I'm calling Refuge App, which it offers 4 essential resources for whichever city and state that a returning citizen intends to live. A director of temporary housing and landlords who embrace second chances, a list of employers committed to hiring justice-involved individuals, access to mental health services, job training and educational opportunities, then connections to supportive community organizations. By equipping returning citizens with these resources, we can empower them to navigate the barriers of reentry and reclaim their independence with dignity and confidence. Next slide, please. And there's the app that I am proposing, Refuge App. Thank you.
Idea of that Refuge App. And if we have some developers on this watch tonight, please get in contact with our students, because that is a phenomenal idea. I believe that that will be one of the tools that can truly help our returning citizens. Great idea, phenomenal presentation. We thank you so much for that information. Again, the Refuge App, awesome. Next up, we will hear from Ms. Erica Parkman Rogers.
Hello, everyone. I am Erica Parkman Rogers, and they are going to present my slide. Give me 1 second. So this is my slide here from the program, the Justice Involved program. The name of my program is the Positive Perspective Group. Next slide, please. So I had the esteemed privilege of interviewing a returning citizen, Mr. C. He was 35 years old, male, African-American, and Mr. C did serve in the United States Army. Next slide, please. Some of the challenges that Mr. C will face, we talked about that, is his background. He grew up in the Zone 4, 4th Ward background. His education, when he was incarcerated, he already had an associate's degree. He is a high school graduate. He does have 1 daughter, no other family. He will not have a challenge with, needing help getting documents like his social security card or his birth certificate. He already has those documents in storage. He also has transportation already. He also has a job. He also has housing. Next slide, please. So that is part of the positive perspective for Mr. C, was that he had the high school diploma. He gets medical benefits through the VA program. He already has a car, transportation that is stored at his father's house, and he already has an option, some options for his career when he returns. So when I was speaking with Mr. C about his dreams and aspirations, so he did acquire a job. He will be released soon. He talked about owning his own 18-wheeler company. So I gave him some positive perspective on how to do that, which is to go to school for his CDL. You know, we want to check with any parole officers to make sure that he's not going to, offend by traveling. And then that he could partner with Custom Critical, FedEx Custom Critical. They have a program that would help him wrap his 18-wheeler so that he can make his dream a reality. Next slide, please. I also had the esteemed privilege of interviewing a justice-involved service provider, not only any service provider, but the CEO of the Four Corners Group. And I interviewed Mr. Johnson. And the mission of Mr. Johnson's Four Corners Group is to decrease juvenile recidivism and in the school to prison pipeline by providing youth with programs in Metro Atlanta that focus on education, support, and empowerment to help youth realize their full potential and live successful lives. And he gives them many resources. I have some stats down here if you guys would like to read those stats. You can also go to his website at fourcornersgroup.com. Next slide, please. Also, I talked to Mr. Johnson about how did he engage and affect change with the youth. And he said, and he just told me, he says, going where the youth are. And you have to see them for who they can be and not how they are. Also, in youth detention centers, when a youth gets put behind bars or lock up, it costs $90,000 to keep those youth housed, versus Mr. Johnson's program at Four Corners Group. You can sponsor a student for $2,000 a year. When I interviewed him, it was $1,625. I had the esteemed privilege. He invited me to their end of year celebration. I did attend that. And, I spoke to him and he said, well, we redid our numbers. It's the end of the year. It's now up towards $2,000, which I think it is awesome. And he provides them with a pathway program. He gives them a different pathway. They go into the schools with the students. If they have to go to court, they go to court with them, and they just provide them with the different pathways. Next slide, please. And also, as we were saying, some of those services that he provides, he said the pro is seeing the lives transform, seeing the students transform. The con to working in this industry is seeing the hopelessness on the faces of the youth when he goes to visit them in the youth detention center. And, he has to leave them, and he has to leave them there. Or if they did a crime, they feel hopeless, like, man, I'm never going to get out of this. So he said that was one con to working with the youth. And I asked him, what did he think was needed to reduce recidivism? And once again, he said just giving the students a different alternative. For example, when they get in trouble, give them a different option versus just send them to an alternative school or locking them up. Talk to them, build that trust, find out why they did what they did. Next slide, please. And then finally, this is my program that I created. It is called Parkman's Directional Placement Program. And so the mission here is to meet clients' needs in all directions to help clients acquire and maintain long-term viable employment, housing, healthcare services that would aid the client's needs for a productive lifestyle that leads the client to their chosen designated career, financial stability, and long-term safe housing, and reducing their chance of recidivism. And I named it Parkman's Directional Placement because I do north, south, east, west. So N stands for needs. We will assess the clients, see what their needs are. And then S is specific. I want to specifically talk to that client and find out what are your specific needs. How can I help you? Where can I meet you? And then E is for evaluate. So once I have evaluated their needs, their specific needs, I'm going to see what is available for that client. And then W is for work. After the evaluation, after, speaking with the client about their specific, what specific things they need and assessing their needs, I'm going to put them to work. I'm going to see what is available for that client. And I'm going to put together a directional plan, almost like a map and a compass that is written out for that client that includes exactly how to get their needs met with no guesswork. I'm also going to include in that plan what to do in the time frame on when it needs to be completed. And I just want to thank Morehouse School of Medicine for accepting me into this program. And that concludes my slide, my section.
What an outstanding presentation, a phenomenal presentation by Miss Erica Parkman Rogers. And when you talk about a good program, meeting the students, meeting the individuals, whether they are children, juveniles, or adults, where they are. And to have a program so defined to where you are going to really address them from all angles is truly a phenomenal program. Ms. Parkman Rogers, I do hope that program will develop into fruition. And I am looking forward to seeing that program. I'm looking forward to the services that you will provide in the community to help reduce recidivism. What an outstanding, outstanding presentation. Thank you. Next up, we will have our last presentation by Deborah Bacote Taylor.
Hi, I want to thank God, my family, friends, colleagues, Dean Waldrop, Dr. Hill, Dr. Drayton, the entire Morehouse School of Medicine team, and my esteemed classmates for making this journey a truly memorable and life-enriching experience. My name is Deborah Bacote Taylor, and today my presentation is called Barrier Breakers, to better and beyond the bars. Next slide, please. The next 4 slides contain the interview that I conducted with a justice-involved service provider. The justice-involved service provider stated that she has been employed by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities as a forensic community coordinator for 4 years and 7 months. Next slide, please. When asked about her skills, she shared that she is a licensed clinician by the State Board of Georgia and was previous experience as a mental health counselor and correctional officer in the Georgia Department of Corrections, and is a licensed marriage and family therapist. When asked about the population that she engages, she states, I have engaged behavioral health agencies, clients, and community stakeholders to coordinate court-ordered services, monitor progress, and provide support for reintegration and competency restoration. This includes weekly contacts for juveniles. Next slide, please. When asked about the types of resources and support needed for her job, she stated, I rely on clinical guidance, court collaboration, and community partnerships. Next slide, please. We are completing the interview for the service provider here, and I was asked a question. What skills or observations learned from this course were helpful in conducting my interview? I stated that the skills of applying active listening, professional insight, and understanding the complexities of the criminal justice system shaped my approach to this interview. Next slide, please. The next two slides contain an interview that I had with a returning citizen. The returning citizen is a 33-year-old African-American male who is the father of two and has been incarcerated for 4 years at the Metro Reentry Facility. Next slide, please. In this part of the interview, I asked the returning citizen about his education and employment history, as well as the services he will need to maintain a stable life in the community. He shared that he has a GED and has worked in construction and warehouse jobs. He said that upon release, he would need a job, transportation, a regular source of health care for diabetes, oral health care to make him more employable, and legal assistance with child support payments. Next slide, please. The next two slides will contain the reentry plan that I developed and suggest for the individual upon release. For legal needs, I suggest the Atlanta Legal Aid, located on Ellis Street in Atlanta. The Atlanta Legal Aid helps with child support payments, fights for child support and custody, and helps legalize family relationships. For his medical and dental needs, I am suggesting the Mercy Care Clinic located on Decatur Street in Atlanta. They provide services on a sliding fee scale based on an individual's ability to pay. And if an individual doesn't have the fees when necessary, then they will make payment arrangements. And if a person doesn't have income, with proof of no income, they will provide services for free. Next slide, please. For his employment needs, I am suggesting Randstad Staffing Agency. It offers a range of job opportunities from temporary and permanent jobs, including warehouse and construction work. I'm also suggesting that he develop a support network. The support network that I'm suggesting is a justice-involved peer-led support network, and it would be through the Freedom First Initiative, a program that I have created for the Recovery Resources of Atlanta Midtown, a program of Covenant Community Incorporated, located at 25 North Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia. This is a program that focuses on reducing or eliminating recidivism and supports justice-involved individuals in rebuilding their lives and navigating the criminal justice system upon release or post-incarceration. And this is a program that is from a peer perspective. So we at the Covenant Community Incorporated can all services are free. And so one of the services that we can provide, he stated that he would need transportation needs. So we would be able to support him by providing free MARTA cards. Next slide, please. Again, thank you all.
Taylor, for that awesome presentation, a wealth of resources and knowledge there. I love the fact that the Freedom First is able to provide these resources. Sometimes we are really challenged with giving the returning citizens resources that are needed. I like that idea, and it is such a great program. So you all connect those dots, because it takes a village to help those individuals get back out and stay out and really reduce recidivism. That is our ultimate goal in this Life Coach program, to prepare the students with education and knowledge and the tools to really be that life coach. to help individuals navigate the barriers. Next up, we will have our introduction of our guest speaker by Mr. Clarence Hampton.
Wonderful job to all of the graduates and presenters. They were absolutely amazing ideas and great presentations, and thank you. Now it is my honor to introduce a speaker whose life story and message of resilience have captivated audiences worldwide. Tyron Jackson is the founder of Reborn Resilient and the best-selling author of Choosing Resilience. He's a man who's faced profound challenges, yet through his unique journey, he's discovered a path forward, not to just survive, but to thrive and inspire others to do the same. Tyron has developed the Roadmap to Resilience, a powerful framework that provides actionable steps for overcoming adversity and leading purposefully. His approach isn't just about bouncing back, it's about transforming obstacles into stepping stones, finding strength in unexpected places, and managing changes and uncertainty in productive ways. Tyron's ability to connect deeply with his audience comes from his own experiences, which have equipped him with hard-won insights into leadership and personal growth. A passionate advocate for inclusivity and compassionate leadership, Tyron believes in the power of diverse perspectives and the strength that comes from supporting one another. Whether leading a workshop, speaking at a corporate event, or engaging in a panel discussion, Tyron's message resonates with people of all walks of life. He shows us that resilience is a choice and that we have to have the capacity to rise no matter what we face. Today, Tyron Jackson invites you to join him on a journey of transformation and resilience. Prepare to be inspired, to be challenged, and equipped with the tools to turn your setbacks into powerful comebacks. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to celebrate and get ready for our speaker of this evening and this graduation, Mr. Tyron Jackson.
Good evening, and thank you guys for letting me be a part of this. First off, I want to say, let me make sure my screen is sharing. Yes, this is titled Resilient Inspiration because there's a lot that is really going on in the world, and you guys know this. One of the speakers earlier was talking deeply about what it means to be resilient. Now, I'll go into that a little bit, but I want you to understand that this is truly about what you guys are doing. First off, congratulations for going through the effort that it takes to be able to be a certified life coach and to be able to care for those who are going through these challenges and obstacles in their path. However, understand what your role in this is. It's about transforming the lives that you have in front of you. It is about giving those people who didn't have hope at one point in time the hope that they need, but understanding that you have a unique perspective, a unique knowledge, a unique understanding and experiences that will help these people who are going through the challenges that they are take advantage of the second chances that are being provided. I'm going to give you a little bit of a story and show you a little bit about how my life was transformed. And if it wasn't for resiliency, I wouldn't be here. But also what life can do to you and life can cause, and what going through life without the help that you need can end up causing and leaving you. Also, the flip side of that is what happens when you do have that positive aspect, that positive direction in your life. What can your life become? That is the responsibility that you hold. So I want to start with this. Life is only 10% of what happens to us. The other 90% is how we respond. And I, for one, believe that the choices that we have in our life, those are the most important choices that we happen to have. And we have to be forced to make those decisions when we're facing the most extreme adversity. But the choice to be resilient is a conscious choice that we have to make. Now, I know many of you understand that we have moments in our life that we really can't predict, that we're completely blindsided, that somehow we have to figure out how we're going to get through it. Do you know how you're going to respond? Are the people that you're supposed to impact, do they realize how they're going to respond? They face challenges already. Some of them made bad decisions in the midst of those, but understand that with resiliency and with what you are equipped with now, you're going to help them be able to bounce back, come to terms with, and overcome those breakdowns. I'm going to tell you a quick story. Let me share my story. Just jumping into this, I went through a significant change in my life 6 years ago. 6 years ago, my wife, Malika, and I, we were celebrating our 15th wedding anniversary. We decided to take a trip. We went on vacation and went to the Bahamas for what was supposed to be 5 days in paradise. Unfortunately, life happened. Watch this.
They met nearly 2 decades ago while in college at Tennessee State University. She was an AKA with a megawatt smile, a beautiful heart, and a magnetic personality. He, a Kappa, a humble guy with a sweet soul who prided himself on his study habits. They fell in love immediately after meeting at a party. They married 2 years later and had a son, Cameron. Their friends and family described their marriage as the perfect union between two strong, smart, and God-fearing people. Tyran and Malika Jackson were undeniably the envy of most couples.
Tonight, authorities in the Bahamas investigating what caused this popular tour boat to explode, killing one American woman and injuring at least 9 others, leaving behind this incinerated floating shell.
But on June 30th, Malika died while the two were celebrating their 15th wedding anniversary while vacationing in the Bahamas. She was 39. These are pictures of the duo taken the day before tragedy struck. They were enjoying a romantic getaway when the engine of the tour boat they were on suddenly exploded off the coast of Exuma. 10 American tourists were on board the 40-foot chartered boat at the time of the incident. Tyran lost his leg, broke his collarbone, and fractured his pelvis and spine, suffered second-degree burns, and had his left shoulder dislocated. Malika, who was sitting where the engine exploded, was killed. And now Tyran, whose doctors say is a walking miracle, is forced to be a single father. And while his wife is gone, these pictures, memories, their son, are all reminders of the love that was and will forever live inside of his soul.
So you see what happened to me. Life just happened. I found myself waking up face down on the surface of that burning boat. I ended up coming to because I was literally on fire. My right leg was burning. I had a broken right foot, fractured pelvis, fractured vertebrae, bruised ribs, broken collarbone, and I was in and out of consciousness 5 different times. Now, at the time, Malika was thrown off of the boat and she was picked up by another boat and carried to a clinic. I was eventually carried to that clinic, and as they put me on a stretcher and wheeled me into that same clinic, that was the first time I heard Malika's voice. I heard her moans, her agony, her suffering. And as a man, I couldn't do anything about it. There was one doctor at this facility, and the one doctor said that we're sending you and one other passenger to the good hospital and that your wife will come later. They get me to that hospital. I go into surgery where they try to reattach what was left of my left foot to my leg and tell me that my wife should be there. I wake up out in ICU and 2 doctors come in the room. And when they come in, I ask them, where's my wife? Where's Malika? 2 doctors look at each other in confusion. They leave out. After about 5 minutes or what seemed like an eternity, they came back in and they told me, Mr. Jackson, we hate to inform you, but your wife didn't make it. Now, here we were supposed to be having a momentous celebratory time together and on vacation, celebrating our union and our life together. My wife passed away. In that moment, I was emotionally broken to an extent beyond what you could imagine. I cried myself to sleep that night, trying to come to grips with the fact that this had to just be a bad dream. I wake up the next morning and I realize it is not a dream, but this is my reality. This is what I'm having to face. Now, I woke up and I had to do something I didn't want to do, but I knew I had to do. I had to call our 12-year-old son who was staying with his uncle and tell him over the phone, son, I know mom and dad were on vacation and I know we were having a good time, but mom's never coming home again. To hear his pain, to hear his trying to reason what was going on the other side of that phone line was one of the hardest things as a dad I could ever have to experience. I told him, son, we'll figure out how to get through this. And through all of this, I didn't know how we were going to get through. I didn't even know if I was going to make it. As I told him we'll talk later that day, I found myself feeling worse and worse as I'm laying in the hospital bed. As I'm laying there, I'm glancing up and I could see the EKG monitor over my head. And as I was laying there, Over the course of 3 hours, I saw all my vital signs go from green to yellow to red. They tried to reattach what was left of my left foot, but my foot was infected. And that infection was starting to go through my body. And as it was going through my body, my organs were starting to shut down. And it was a hurtful, painful situation to realize that my wife had already been taken from me. I just broke my son's heart. And now I'm coming to grips with the fact that I only have a couple hours to live. That the next time I close my eyes was going to be the last time I closed my eyes. In this point, I was in the truest state of despair, broken physically, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. And as I said, I didn't think I'd wake up to see another day. Now, there were a lot of things that were happening in the background. And I happened to wake up the next day, and the next thing I knew, I was getting confiscated from this hospital in the Bahamas, taken to a place in Florida where they had level 1 trauma unit that could actually treat my injuries. Over the course of the next couple of days, I ended up going through 9 surgeries to start putting the pieces of me back together. And in the midst of this, I started realizing that it was intended for me to live. Now, I'm a spiritual person, and God spoke to me, and God told me that if he wanted to, he could have taken my life when that boat exploded. He could have taken my life when all my vital signs went from green to yellow to red. He could have taken my life when I was in ICU and went through 5 surgeries in one day. But he told me a couple of things. He told me that I had to make a conscious choice to be resilient, that the obstacles that I've overcome to that point were nothing compared to the obstacles I was going to have to face. He told me I had to come to grips with the fact that it was Malika's time to come home, and that the sooner that I got to a place of getting out of denial and accepting that reality was going to be the moment where I start to change my life. He told me that I had to make a decision if I wanted to not just survive, but to thrive. And it was in that moment, making that choice with the continuous theme of be resilient, that it became clear that that was going to be critical in the challenges I was going to have to get past in order to regain control of life again. He told me my life in the past, what was my normal, was not going to be my new normal. And where I'm going with this is we have to understand that life happens to people, things that you don't see coming. Many of the people that you're going to work with had life happen to them. Their normal, the expectation of where they were in the past is not going to be where they thought they were going to be or where they're going to go in the future. And now they have to pivot, they have to make a shift. They might have spent time in the pen, but they don't understand that things are going to have to be different. And this is where your role as a life coach comes into play. What your job is going to be help orchestrate and define that pivot, because you have the power to position them and help them find positive purpose within their life. If it wasn't for resilience, I wouldn't be here today. Resilience, I talk about it. How do you not just bounce back from the breakdowns that we have in our life, but we adapt to the changes, even while we're facing adversity, and using that recovery as the catalyst to create positive growth. As life coaches, you're instructed. You have this piece about being able to help people get clarity, create that clarity for them to understand what path they need to go in the future. One other thing God mentioned to me, he told me that resilience was not about regaining what was lost, but it's about reshaping what still remains. And it's what you do with what still remains that dictates the narrative for the rest of your life. You're going to be working with individuals, with people who have to go through getting past what happened to them, but understanding they have to take where they are from this point and make the most of how they're going to move forward. Do what's necessary in order to help them create that path, create that vision. Everywhere you got in life, your mind got there first. That means you have to visualize where you want to be in life and what steps that it's going to take to get there. I'm going to go through this really quickly because this is what my roadmap to resilience is all about. There are 7 steps to go into it. I won't go into all of this. The restoration, we have to restore these people who have been broken physically, emotionally, mentally, by what injustices have happened to them. You have to help realize that you have to have an obsession to get that clarity on focus and goals, not just for your clients, but for yourself. Understand that acceptance. Acceptance is the enemy of denial. Get past what happened in the past and look at how accepting your reality so you can move forward. Discipline, sometimes you just have to do the work. Motivation, your motivation. Look, you all have a unique heart, a unique place, a unique care for those who have dealt with these injustices. Leverage and use that to keep you understanding that your reason is bigger than where you were before. Attitude. Attitude is critical. Having that positive attitude is going to help you and help them reframe their mindset, their thoughts, create that shift in order for them to get the most out of it. And last and most importantly, the process. What is the process? The process is a specific set of actions to get from where you are today to where you want to be. Everything that we do has a process attached to it. Understand that by creating this process for your clients, for your people, these programs you put together, you are doing this. You have the power to help people pivot, positioning their lives to create a pathway for a positive purpose. Own that responsibility. Realize that there is value and importance in what you're doing by helping these people get reintegrated back into life again. Now, I'm going to go through this really quick. This was me in my most broken state in a wheelchair. And over the course of having the right people in my life, helping show me how to be able to get restored physically, how to be able to get through the grief and the pain and go through the emotional growth, to be able to regain control of life again, got me to a place where after losing my left leg, 6 months afterwards, I was running 5Ks. I was swimming with one leg. I was running 10Ks, doing things beyond what you would believe, because mindset is so important. When you think you can't do anything, you're destined to fail. But when you're given that hope and belief that you can do things and you understand the clear path and process on how to get there, and you actually implement that step by step by step, you start to see growth. You start to see recovery. Now, without going into everything, after experiencing what I experienced, I realized that part of my purpose was not going back to being an engineer, which I was in my former life. I had to make this transition from Tyran Jackson 1.0 to Tyran Jackson 2.0. And that is what you're doing. You are helping people make that transformation from their previous version of who they were to who they are meant to be, who they are supposed to be, how they integrate back into life and deal with the relationships, the career, with the family, with those interactions that are going to lead them to a place from one time being hopeless to ultimately being happy again. And understand that there is a value and fulfillment in you doing that. We have critical and important roles in what we do as life coaches, in what we do in order to help shape the journey that others have in order to get to where they need to be and want to be in life. So I would go through these things, but I understand we're short on time. Understand that it is you're creating clarity. You have your unique experiences. You're going to be able to leverage those experiences along with your heart to be able to define the future for the people who you're going to impact in this world. There is a process for success. We talk about it a little bit throughout this program. You were developing your process. Now you have a program and process to create success within these people who you're going to create a future for. You don't know how big that impact is going to be in your life, but you can go and you can help people transform into people far beyond what they thought they could be. And so understand that part of what you're going to do is help create confidence, the discipline for them to stick with the process needed for them to fulfill their purpose. Once again, I just want to restate this. There is a power, and you have this power to help people pivot and position their lives to create this pathway for a positive purpose. Are you ready to step up to that challenge? I want to commend you for doing what you've done to get through this program. And this is the first step to the rest of your life in changing the lives of others. My name is Tyran Jackson. If you want to find out more about myself or any information related to how I help those going through trauma, tragedy, or transition in life make the transformations to be triumphant, you can find me here, or you can scan this QR code where you can get more insight on how I use my words, my mission, my story in order to change the lives of millions. Congratulations. I'm proud of you. Everyone here in the Morehouse School of Medicine is proud of you. Now go out there and change the world. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
What a testimony. Thank you so much, Mr. Tyran Jackson. What a testimony, heartfelt, grinching testimony, just amazing, powerful, powerful, life-lived true story, you guys. When you talk about the textbook definition of resilience, when you look that word up, you will see Mr. Tyron's face. You will see Tyron's face. And you talk about the ability to have an impact on people from a personal testimony is so powerful. And it's all about you all having the resilience as a life coach to be able to help individuals have that pivot, to make that positive change, to help them and meet them where they are for that total transformation. So we are looking forward to great things that you all, as Justice Involved Life Coach, now graduates, will be doing in the near future to help those returning citizens reduce recidivism and make a difference in our communities. Thank you so much. We are grateful to have Mr. Tyron Jackson tonight as our guest speaker. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful speech tonight. Now, as we begin to move forward in our program, we are nearing the end. This is the time where we will just give all of our graduates an acknowledgement of them graduating and receiving their certificates. So this will come up now. I will begin to congratulate each of our students for a phenomenal job that they have done in this Justice Involved Life Coach program. Thank you all so much for participating in this program. Mr. Dr. Byron Jackson, congratulations on your certificate. Miss Candace Kennedy, congratulations on completing your certificate. Dr. Scott Jones, congratulations on completing your certificate. Isley Anderson, congratulations on completing your certificate program. Ms. Jessica O'Brien, congratulations on completing your certificate program. Ms. Erica Parkman Rogers, congratulations on completing your program. And Ms. Deborah Bicote Taylor, congratulations on completing your certificate program. We would like to say from you and from me and the Morehouse family, congratulations to all of our students who participated in the Justice Involved Life Coach program. I enjoyed this journey with you, and I am so honored to say I am very, very proud of each and every one of you. This has truly been a phenomenal journey, and I cannot wait to see what you will be doing in the future. Thank you all so much. And now we should hear closing remarks from our Director of the Masters of Administration in Justice Involved Care and the Justice Involved Life Coach program, Dr. Hari Drayton. I'm not sure if Dr. Drayton is on with us tonight. Well, if not, in Dr. Drayton's absence, I will go ahead and give our closing remarks to our students. Today marks the culminating point where all of your hard work and your dedication and your passion will now begin to make a difference in the lives of the Justice Involved individuals. We are incredibly proud of your accomplishments and excited to see what you plan to do as you move ahead as a Justice Involved Life Coach. Thank you all. We are so proud of you. Each and every one of you are such a phenomenal, stellar Justice Involved Life Coach. Congratulations again. This concludes our program. Thank you.